It is 5:01 p.m. on October 20th, year 2020. Call the meeting to order. Declaration of a quorum, 4 members present. This will move us to item C1, public comments. No public comments. That will bring us to item D1, debrief on the TASB convention. Mr. Martindale.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. On Wednesday, September 30th through Friday, October the 2nd, the first ever TASB virtual convention. So I put this on here to give board members an opportunity to debrief or share out regarding any of the sessions they may have, you didn't attend, I guess virtually attended. So anyway, just here to allow the opportunity for conversation or sharing if there were any particular sessions that sparked curiosity or anything you want to share with the group.
I guess I'll go first. I did go. I just want y'all to know that. No, I actually...
Mr. Warwick, we're not going to pay mileage.
Right.
I attended 3 sessions. One was actually just talking about TA and COVID, which I just wanted to see what they said, honestly. Nothing really to report on that. But the one that I did attend was about cyberbullying, just because we live in that world now. I remember back when I was at Consol, that wasn't a thing. I think I had a pager, maybe one of those Motorola phones, but I didn't know how to text message and all that. So, yeah. So just kind of listening to the presenter, I think it was Dr. Searcy, if my memory strikes me. Just some of the signs, some of the warning signs, talked about trafficking. I mean, so it was a little bit more than just the whole cyber side of it. It was a whole lot of just being aware, and obviously having 3 daughters, you know, it's something that I'm concerned about as they grow up. So I wanted to educate myself as much as I could and obviously look at it from a board member standpoint as we move forward with our district and what we're doing to make sure that we're recognizing the signs, obviously training our staff and employees on that so that it doesn't become a widespread issue. So that was probably the most intriguing part, was the different levels and warning signs to focus on that.
Jeff,
I had no idea.
What day?
I'm sorry?
You remember which day? Was it Thursday? Probably, because Wednesday was later in the evening, Friday, early morning, so probably a session during the day. Thursday?
It was an afternoon, I believe it was 4 p.m. that I recall. Thursday. I just don't know which day. The
reason I ask is when we go back, those are still available to us.
Yes.
For a little while. So.
And I made sure to pull out the session handouts and all those. Geraldine and I had a chance to just kind of visit briefly over the phone, and we weren't able to debrief or anything, but we definitely told each other we'd visit about that. What I found, what she found. So I hope, I mean, I can definitely share all that since I did download it and go forward from there. But very informative. I mean, you know, that's the age we live in right now with virtual, and it was neat to kind of interact because there was a chat feature and she'd ask questions and things like that. And then when you got it wrong, she made sure of it. And I kind of wanted to go, aren't you bullying? But, you know, we just kind of left it at that. I didn't want to call her out. So, but no, very informative. So really enjoyed it.
Can't get my turn on. Okay, so I actually really liked the virtual parts of it. There were parts of the virtual that I really enjoyed. I felt like I actually got a little bit more involved with the convention this time because it was virtual. I went into some of the networking sessions as well, and chatted with a few people. So that was kind of neat. Got some contacts from board members from other districts. But the part that I did not like was not being able to debrief with all of you and not be able to catch you in the halls and say, oh, did you go to what do you think about this one? Or I want to go to this, but at the same time as that one. But I can go back and watch them. And I actually tried to do that today, but I needed to fast forward to a certain part, and it doesn't let you fast forward. Just FYI. I guess because they give you the code, you still get credit for it at the end. But anyways, I noticed that I kind of had a theme with all of the sessions that I chose. A lot of mine had to do with building up your board governance, and relationships, and they were very future focused. And I didn't really realize that I was doing that until I noticed someone was in every single one of the same ones that I was. And so I said something to him, and he's with TASB. And he was like, well, yeah, because that's what I do is I build boards. So, he was like, I assist boards. So anyways, the one that I did not get to attend, that I need to go back and listen to is the at-risk students. But I'll catch that one. I've got 2 more weeks, right? 1.5 more weeks. So the one that I want to talk about the most, though, and I think there were some other people in this one as well, was turning it around, empowering a school board to be the best. And it was put on by Fort Bend ISD. So Kimberly, you were in that one, correct? And so that one, there are so many things that I took away from that. They had kind of a falling out in 2012, and they had 12 administrators leave and 1 board member leave. And at that point, their entire board only had 9 years of experience. So they were a super young board. And so they had to kind of figure out what they were going to do. Because you have 12 administrators leave, that included the superintendent. They had to figure out what was going on and what they needed to be doing. And so some of the things that I took away from that one was that that board is incredibly involved. I think we're involved, but that board was incredibly involved. They have multiple committees that they're on, and when they were revamping everything, they added committees as they saw that they needed them. Right. And so they have like a visioning and planning committee. They also did strategic planning and involved the cabinet. Some other things that I really like that they have a committee that is called, let me see, I wrote it down. Voices. Kimberly, you might have to chime in and help me if you remember what it was. Something about voices, and it was the reading one. It was kind of grouped together. But anyways, what it was their board members have sessions where they go out in the community and they go in the schools and for like an hour, once a month. And they invite the community. And now I don't know if they're doing it right now, but they invite the community, and it's just a relaxed session that the community can just ask board members questions and they can have a conversation. That's what I gathered from that. And then they also do literacy. That's what it was, voices and literacy. And so they also go out and the board members read books to the kids. They're really involved in their literacy program in their district. And so they go out and they read to students. And I thought that was really cool because it gives, kids a chance to see who's involved in their community and whatnot. And then the parents, know that the board is also investing time in the kids as well, outside of just meetings. But there's so much more that I can say about this board. I think they are a model board to kind of look at. And like I said, we are already doing a lot of these things, which I was like, whew, but it's very worthwhile to listen to them. And they talked a lot about, also about governance versus management, which, as we all know, Geraldine kind of struggles with that. So it's always good to get that reiterated from other people as well. I think that's it. There were a bunch of others. I would recommend if anyone is looking for ones that they want to listen to. There's that one, and then there was the one titled Board Superintendent Relationship. I like that one. I think that was Victoria ISD. Yeah, did y'all do that one as well? So there are things in there, like they said to move away from saying buy-in to ownership, radical transparency, shift from closed and knowing to open and learning. Just a lot of these different things and just different ways to think of things, right? So I really, really enjoyed that one. But for the Fort Bend, going back to the turning it around, empowering a board, I honestly would like for us to think about maybe if there are any other committees that we need to be adding here and other ways that our board needs to be involved. And, this is a discussion that, we can have sometime, Mr. Martindale, all of us, right? Just to kind of put feelers out there and see if there's anything else that we need to be doing. That's all.
Mr. Martindale, how long will these be up? The
November 1st, I think it
November,
said.
okay.
I'm pretty sure it's November. Is that? Yeah.
Next week.
Okay. The first day was the day I was going to kind of load up, and I had some staff trauma, and so I ended up going to nothing. So I just hit day 2, and like Mr. Horak, I did attend. Oh, let me take this off for a second. I attended the TEA one over the response to COVID, and I think like Mr. Horak, I was just interested in what they had to say. In fact, it didn't go near as long as I think they were planning. Remember, they just kind of called it early. But I also went to one, I don't remember the title of it, but it dealt with mental health of the students. And what I thought was interesting was they spent most of the time talking about trying to build, anybody else go to that one? No, but they spent a lot of the time talking about building relationships with local professionals and trying to get them into their doors. And I thought, well, gee, that sounds really familiar. So I almost kind of felt like we might have, we should have been in on that with them, helping lead a little bit. But it was good to see a lot of the things like the cyberbullying and topics like that are very timely. But again, it was odd to go to this one. I thought, well, this is literally by the book what we've done the last couple of years. And so props to, where's Ms. Perry? Props. Did you attend that one, by the way? Okay. You should have led it.
It is funny. I think by chance, Ms. Nolan and I ended up in a few of the same, and I think some of our administrators as well. I ended up going to 2 that were put on by Fort Bend ISD. I mean, and as you said, they really are pretty impressive, and their story, that turning it around story, was pretty interesting too. It actually all started, for those of you who know the CRSS, it started because they were written up poorly by CRSS, the company my father-in-law started, and they then hired Kathy Mensberg, right, that I know y'all know, and brought her in to really start this turning it around with them, and as Geraldine described.
Is she the one that did our board training last year?
Yes.
Our Team of 8 training?
Yes.
I think so.
So, I don't know. So I don't know if I have a whole lot more to add. I mean, I really did feel from that one and the Victoria one as well, how involved the boards were on, I think Fort Bend called them committees, some of them standing committees, and some of them, short-term committees, but always something going on. And I think Victoria called them task force, but but still the same kind of idea, very board involved with community, and like you said, Ms. Nolan, the community ownership that the school district and really the education of all the students, we all should own it, not just everybody in the district, but the whole community. Did you want to say something about the delegate assembly? That's the other thing that we both sat in on
I'll let you go.
Saturday.
I've already talked a ton. Go ahead and talk about it, and if I want to say anything else, I will.
It was a long one. I think it was longer than normal. I think just having to, almost right at 4 hours, having to go through all the voting online was extremely tedious. I don't know if y'all know, but they really work through, every word to some degree of the they call it the advocacy agenda of TASB, right? So what TASB wants to advocate for us, for all the boards. And so all the board members are deciding on those exact language. And they decide on they have cornerstone principles or the high level, then their priorities, and then resolutions. And I think all of it came out to us in one of the TASB emails recently. But I think that I'm not going to go over them all, obviously, but I do think the one thing that came out of that, our speaker was Representative, what was his name?
Dan Huberty.
All right, I didn't remember. But, I mean, one of the things he said, obviously part of our job is to advocate for public education and advocate for our own school district, is we need to start talking about that now, right? And I know usually around this time we start putting it on our workshop
Correct.
to talk about what our
Legislative priorities.
exactly. So I'm assuming we'll start talking
It's
about
in
that
the queue for next month.
for next month. Exactly, perfect, because they'll be back at it in January, and we want to kind of get ahead of the game before they get to work there in January. And just, I think the one thing I heard from, I liked one other thing. I'll say I thought the CEO of the Mavericks was pretty inspiring. I mean, I really find TASB not only kind of informative, lots of information, but it's inspiring as well. She was the headliner, and it was kind of fun. She had lots of little things, but one of the pictures she showed was the one we saw at Schlechte, and when she talked about equity. And she showed that fence, right, with the kids trying to look over the fence, and how, it's our job to get them what they need to look over that fence, and it's not always the same thing for every kid. So obviously that one always sticks in my mind. So a lot of talk about student achievement.
I tell you what, I'll go if you want a minute to catch your breath, Mr. Ben. There were a number of sessions. The first one I did was Wednesday afternoon, the 30th, later in the afternoon, and it was a panel of superintendents from throughout the state. And I know many of those folks, Brian and Jill and Martha and Charles at Fort Bend. And so I always, me personally, as a leader, get a lot from sitting and listening to them just dialogue about things that they have dealt with over the past number of months, and their approach to things, and so on and so forth. And sometimes it's, I don't want to say refreshing, but just affirmation, like, the things that we have wrestled with and the protocol we've tried to put in place, and just trying to get school back open, and the struggles and challenges or opportunities, as I prefer to say, that we encountered, that, they were not ours alone. And everyone was experiencing them. So hearing them kind of talk through those things, and just, again, I always get a lot from the panels, because they're kind of speaking freely and from personal experience, and they don't have this set agenda or specific presentation. They're just sharing their experiences. And with this group, there's a tremendous amount of experience and knowledge there to learn from. Did a session on the upcoming legislative session, so a legislative update. And of course, a vast majority of that was conversation about concern with, obviously, with finances. What's that going to look like from the state down through to public school funding and those types of things. Obviously, with COVID and its impacts on the economy, that there'll have to be decisions made in Austin as to how to manage that in the next legislative session as they build the state budget. So that was interesting. A lot of talk on that one. One on governance, and I believe we were all, many of us were in the particular session that had to do with relationships, board superintendent, board community, that Dr. Shepard out of Victoria and some of those folks led. And all of their practice that they spoke of and the experiences they have been through are results of their strategic work that they went through, and I believe it was Quentin's second year there. But all of that work is a result of a strategic planning process that they went through as a collective team. Because after listening to them, I kind of went and did some research because I too was struck by some of their conversations. So I wasn't sure how much I would take to the virtual concept, but TAS and TASB did an excellent job, really, of managing it all. So.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't say that, but it exceeded my expectations. Obviously, it's not the same as being there and getting to talk to, and debrief, but it was still very worth the time you put in there. Can I add one more before you go too? The one nobody I think has mentioned is the one that was not very informative was our commissioner. He did not have a whole lot of meaningful to say. That's just.
He led ours.
No, I was just going to say that as a first-year board member, the ones that I sat in on, the governance, the legal update, a lot of the, I don't want to use the term basics, but hearing a lot of the especially like the legal update, which obviously to me is more interesting. But the practical applications that came through in a lot of the sessions were kind of nice, and they probably would have been better in person. But just seeing that as a first year board member, seeing the practical applications to all these different issues. Also, I was pleasantly surprised with how entertaining it was. Trying to think of my mind is, I apologize, my mind is a little out right now. Been a long day. What was the one where they did the talk show format? Did anybody else watch that? Oh, that's bugging me now because it was like the most, it was literally laugh out loud funny, which was, I got to go back and look at that for y'all. Yeah, it was literally, it was good. So yeah, the format was good, and the background information and the practical application. The one that I think Mike you alluded to, 123 House Bill 3, and some of the updates on financing, as we are not surprised or a bit concerning, and will be something to be concerned about in the next couple of years. I don't know if a lot was definitive came out of those, but I picked up on a lot of the uncertainty that a lot of other boards and administrations have. So I guess it was nice, I don't know if that's the right word, to see that that's a concern obviously across the state. So, but it was, I didn't get to watch any on Wednesday, and Friday was kind of hit or miss. So I'm going to try to go back and catch some of those before the end of the month. But yeah, but it was good.
As I reflect on some of the things y'all talked about, I think it's, listen to the knowledge that each of y'all brought, I think it's going to, we always talk about a SWOT analysis as we work on our mission statement and vision statement. I think some of the topics that y'all discussed, I think are going to be very important when y'all start that process next year. I think definitely we're going to know some of the strengths and weaknesses from that we've heard from other districts, as well as we start doing some self-reflection upon ourselves. And then also some of the opportunities and threats. And I think probably the biggest threat, which is very obvious, is going to be the financial aspect of it. And, the article that was in Transmittal of the fund balances, that comparing that to the rainy day fund, I see that as probably one of the, even the way that was relayed, I mean, that's definitely a big threat for us as a district. But I will have to confess that I did not watch any of the videos, and just want the record to say that. I hope I get a waiver. Okay. Item number 2. If there's
Short timer.
Yeah. Item number 2, consideration and discussion related to pre-AP courses for the 2021 and 2022 school year and beyond. Mr. Martindale.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer and board members. If you recall, last month at workshop, Dr. Trammell took us through some of this information, of course, how college boards adjusting the curriculum associated with pre-AP and some of the requirements to carry that particular label or course, talked us through that information, and has since, Penny, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe 3 committee meetings with teachers and student representatives as well. So tonight, Penny's going to kind of share an update. She's provided some of this information via transmittal. Ms. Trammell shared it through the transmittal over the past month as well. But she's going to give us an update from those committee meetings. There's no particular action on this at this point in time. She's going to give you some information. If there is any particular action on this, it would be in November, and it would be in the way of adjusting some wording with policy. Because currently policy addresses the different level courses of pre-AP and honors. If a particular recommendation, which there is from the committee, comes out of this in name change on some courses, then that would be the only type of action that would be required. It's not happening this month, but if there is any, it would come up in November, and it would really be just changing some verbiage in a particular policy where these courses are referenced. So, Dr. Trammell.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Martindale. Good evening. The pre-AP committee has met 3 times. Just a reminder that the committee is a committee of 34, compiled of teachers, campus administrators, and students, as well as curriculum and instruction. The goal of the committee was just to comply with the College Board's requirements with the request to not call courses pre-AP unless we chose to pay the fee and have pre-AP courses. And the committee, as we went along, also want to clarify our system for advanced courses. Since we were taking out the pre-AP, we felt like it was a great opportunity to just look at our courses across the way and just simplify that a little bit. So the committee felt very strongly about if we took pre-AP away and the committee chose not to participate with the College Board in pre-AP for all and open enrollment, and it would be on level at that point. They wanted to promote rigor, equity, and college and career readiness for everyone, and they felt that we could do this with the current pre-AP curriculum that we have with some alignment to the new AP curriculum. And we did have members on our committee who have worked with the College Board on the AP curriculum. We had certain parameters that we looked at as we had our discussions and made decisions. One would be that we would not be shifting any GPA. So courses are currently 5.0, so we weren't going to do anything differently with that in looking at labeling some 4.5 or 4.0, our regular courses are 4.0, but so we weren't going to mess with that. A decision needs to be made by the 2021-22 school year to either remove pre-AP labels from the course catalogs or to adopt the College Board's pre-AP program, which means their curriculum and framework. The third parameter was our course catalog is finalized in December, so we knew that we need to meet as many times as we need to between now and December to make those decisions. Just a reminder that we looked at 3 options and we invited the committee to bring additional options that they might think about as they visited with their departments, and the students visited with other students throughout their schools. We did not have a 4th option brought forward. So the 3 options that were considered was option 1, to only change pre-AP names to advanced, and honors would remain in place across the content areas with 3-tiered courses. Option 2 was to eliminate the 3-tiered courses that exist in some content areas, such as English and social studies, as we remove the pre-AP names from courses. So all 5.0 courses would be labeled AP or advanced. In the 3-tiered content areas, we would eliminate the honors courses and go with on-level, advanced, or AP. In the 2-tiered content areas, we would rename honors and pre-AP courses to advanced. Our curriculum would be streamlined. We would align the advanced curriculum to the AP curriculum so that we ensure our students are getting everything that they need to be career and college ready. Option 3 was to pay the pre-AP fee for each course offered at each of the high schools and continue to offer pre-AP courses and use the pre-AP name curriculum framework. We would have to adjust that a little bit because they are not aligned to the Texas TEKS, so that's just a quick point to note. Option 2, just looking at it a little more carefully and just reinforcing what it is, would be to eliminate the 3-tier courses that exist in some content areas and remove pre-AP names from courses. Again, all 5.0 courses will be labeled AP or advanced, and in the 3-tier courses, our content areas, we would eliminate the honors courses and have on-level and advanced. In the 2-tier content areas, just simply renaming those honors pre-AP to advanced. And I will tell you before we look at the pros and cons that the committee, while they overwhelmingly supported option 2, and when we brought it to DEIC, our input from DEIC in the chat box and in just open invitation for discussion was in favor of option 2. So that transcript shows that both the DEIC and the committee recommend option 2. The teachers, we had a lot of teachers on the committee that have taught on level pre-AP, AP, and honors. And our teachers spoke out strongly that they feel our students who are currently taking honors courses would do just fine in pre-AP courses, and in fact get more rigor and be even more prepared for college. The committee thought of pros and cons for all 3 options, and so I just wanted to share some of the pros that the committee felt option 2 had. I think one of the main things on this slide, as you kind of look through, is the equity and the alignment of the 4 core areas, and I'll show you some slides in a minute that are very visual, that you can see the differences in what was and what the committee is recommending. These are obviously pros that the committee came up with. This was through an activity where they collaborated at their table groups and then recorded what they collaborated on as far as pros and cons for option 1, option 2, and option 3. And then these were the cons to option 2. We did have, 3 teachers that shared, we do have some students who take a lot of AP courses, and they currently are putting the pressure on themselves and really are overachievers, and they do stretch themselves fairly thin. Conversely, we had teachers that said, they felt like having taught honors and having taught AP, that our kids would be just fine taking AP courses and advanced courses. So just look at those. In looking at aligning our 4 core and our electives, these were some of the goals that came out from CTE, just to continue all the previous 5.0 courses that are named honors and call them advanced, to add additional advanced courses to ensure each pathway has a 5.0. Currently, we have some of our career-ready pathways that do not have 5.0 courses. And so if a student were interested in a certain strand or a certain pathway, they wouldn't have the opportunity to have a 5.0 course if they chose to go with their interest and their passion, as opposed to just taking a course to get the 5-point weight. So we want our kids to be able to at least be on an equal playing foot with their interest and their passions in their coursework if possible. And then advanced CTE courses, currently they're primarily in the junior and senior level. We don't see that changing, but we do have some in some of the other grade levels. And then looking at CTE, when in offering advanced, we would try to equalize CTE courses with the other courses, the other electives. Right now, there's a bit of inequity in that. One of our goals is to, of course, align with the state with the House Bill 3 and the board goals. CCMR, the Career College and Military Ready area, is one of the areas that the state wants us to focus on. And so this supports focusing on that and strengthening that area for our students. And this would make our CTE programming consistent with other electives. We put our classes, the core, fine arts, LOTE, which is languages other than English, in this format so that you could do a visual comparison of what we currently have and what the committee recommends. So in the dark blue, you'll see the courses that we currently have, and in the white area, you'll see the courses that the committee is recommending. So we currently have Spanish 1, Spanish 2, Spanish 2 Honors, Spanish 3 Pre-AP, Spanish 4 AP, Spanish 5 AP. Nothing would really change greatly in that, except honors and pre-AP would become advanced. You can see in French, it is the same thing. In German, the same thing. And in Latin, pretty much the same thing. In fine arts, Mr. Eakes listed our courses. You can see, I apologize, we have quite a few that are fine arts courses, which is a great thing. You'll see the H's beside all the honors courses. There's only one, I think there's only one pre-AP course, if I'm correct in that, and that is Art 3. Pre-AP does offer art in their coursework. So if you look on the right-hand side, you would see the relabeling of those courses with advanced, and they would all maintain their 5.0 grade point average. In math, so now we're going to move to the 4 core content area, and this is where there's a bit of inequity in what students take and the opportunity in each area to take advanced classes. In math, we have 2 levels, Algebra 1 Pre-AP, and you'll notice that just changes to Algebra 1 Advanced. Geometry, the same thing. You'll see in Algebra 2, the same thing. Pre-Cal, the same thing. And then at the bottom, we've put AP Statistics, and then we know that Calculus is divided by AP Calculus, or AB Calculus and BC Calculus. And those would remain the same. In science, we have a 2-tiered system once again, and this is currently in place. You're not going to see any changes in science other than the vocabulary that we've talked about in changing a pre-AP to an advanced course for the same GPA average. So here is where it gets a little bit different with 3-tiered courses. So, you know, kids in certain classes have an opportunity to take that 5.0 course, which a little history lesson that Miss Hester gave me was that we developed honors as a district because we did not have AP. And when we adopted AP, guess what? We did not get rid of the honors. So honors was developed in lieu of AP. And so historically, you know, when we brought AP into our curriculum, we just kept everything. So in English, we have English 1 honors and English 1 AP. So those that honors and AP pre-AP class, would become advanced. Same thing with English 2. In English 3 and 4, we have a 3-tiered, what is going to be would be a 3-tiered system with on-level, honors, and AP. So to align that, we would just have English 3 and then AP Language and Composition, and then English 4 and AP English Literature. The teachers who teach English on the committee were felt very strongly that this would not be any trouble for kids. So, and if you think about historically, if we hadn't created honors, we would just have the AP anyway. In social studies, again, this chart, the left is what we currently have, and on the right would be what we would have as an on-level and an advanced opportunity for students. I'll give you a minute to look at that. Okay. So, again, I won't read this to you again, but the committee is recommending option 2 and reinforcing that the course structure in English and social studies in particular would change to be aligned with what we have in math and science. In looking at the strengths and then just the considerations that we want to be aware of as a district, the strengths are listed on in the left-hand column, which it aligns the 4 core areas to 2 levels, making opportunities in all 4 core areas the same and equitable. It promotes equity and diversity in all of our courses, reduces preps and increases opportunities for shared planning for teachers. It allows greater scheduling flexibility for students. It encourages more students to take on the challenges of AP courses. And again, our teachers, some of them even said their kids in honors are doing maybe even a little better than their kids in the pre-AP classes. And they felt like they would be absolutely fine in AP. And then it just removes the opportunity for 2 students to take different courses on the same 5.0 GPA scale. So, curriculum-wise, we had already planned to streamline before this came along, pre-AP and honors, and have the exact same rigor in those 2 courses because it has the exact same GPA. I think we even had a student come and speak to the Board of Trustees last year about that very issue. Then considerations that we want to be mindful of, it would require us to purchase more materials. It would create additional professional learning for teachers. Teachers are learners, and we would have a lot of time to get this done. Require students to choose on-level or advanced AP. And then it requires just a great, strong communication to our students, our parents. I don't know if I mentioned we did have we had the 2 head high school counselors on the committee as well. So, Next steps would be to clarify what advanced means in each content area. And in our meeting this week, we did get input from our committee, and we actually gave them permission to take their input sheet and go out to their teams, their departments, other students, and get input on what do we mean when we say advanced, and come to a common district definition of what we mean by advanced, and to make sure our curriculum coursework aligns with what the definition of, or our definition as a district is of advanced. And then just make appropriate adjustments in the course catalog. Ms. Hester was on the committee as well, and she is in charge of the course catalog. To determine the specific professional development needs, we see this as increasing rigor for all, and that would involve professional learning. And then establish an implementation timeline. So we could do this immediately, or there is a thought we could grandfather in some sophomores and juniors, so that when they become juniors and seniors, they're still on this same kind of path. We legally can't call pre-AP courses pre-AP, so we would maintain the advanced on that, but that would grandfather those students. And option C would be to grandfather all current high school students from 9th grade up. And then just to divide the labor, of course, we would be collaborating with our campus administration and our educators as we move forward with this, and then develop the curriculum. And there is a plan to develop that curriculum this summer, so that regardless, all courses are going to be equal that are 5.0. Mr. Martindale mentioned that there would be a policy change involved with this. We're going to have to make that change with honors and pre-AP becoming advanced. And so it's a pretty minor tweak to the policy. And with that, questions and comments?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
What was the discussion, or was there any consensus as far as the grandfathering?
We did not get into that as a committee. We saw our next step as getting that common definition of advanced. So we will be working with our departments. Our coordinators will work with our departments, and we will be working as a central cabinet administrative staff with our principals to look at those options.
I think, Mr. Ben, if there's a transition period with grandfathering, you still probably have to make an adjustment to policy and capture the correct terminology relative to the year of implementation. So that you would still need to make that adjustment to policy. I step back and try to think of pros and cons each way. The only, and again, we're just having discussion right now as far as timeline. The only thing that we really need to have conversation over, especially at the campus level, is if you grandfather, then of course you're going to be running two different sets of courses for several years, which that's something the council are going to have to figure out how to determine how to manage, understanding whether it's sophomores, juniors that are moving up, or everybody, whatever. You're in essence going to have two sets of books, so to speak, for a certain time period. Wow. And I have transition grade points in previous districts, and that takes 4 years. Yep. Because you obviously, anytime you start messing with grade points, that's why that wasn't a part of this conversation, is you basically have to start it with 8th graders that are taking high school courses. So it takes, Yeah, it takes 4 to 5 years to implement a new grade point system.
Yeah.
So there wasn't conversation about the transitional piece or the timelines.
No, we did share those transitional options with the committee, but we did not do any discussion work and that kind of thing around them. We really feel like we want a clear definition of advanced before we move forward.
Okay.
So on the CTE area, that's where there's going to have to be a lot more work to be done, obviously, right?
Yes, and we have a fantastic CTE director.
I'm very impressed with what I'm seeing right now. So all those alignments, that's going to be just,
So Mr. Ross is working with Mr. Eakes, and they are kind of working in tandem because it's not a competition. It's about our kids. And so we want the kids to truly, take what they're interested in and pursue the areas they want to pursue. The committee had strong feelings about equity and, equity for all things, all programs, all for content area, for core areas, and all students. And so just because I might be interested in a career with some certifications, it doesn't mean that I'm not smart enough to take an advanced kind of class. If that,
I'm loving what you're hearing, and I think that's something that, in my mind, that's probably need to be addressed for many, many years. And so I think it's just going to be challenging just because of the amount of different areas. And, you start looking at the core areas, I can see where, I hate to use the word streamlining, but
Sure.
more or less streamlining. But anyhow, I'm glad to see that because I think it is going to open a lot of more doors for other people, a lot of students.
Yeah. The committee felt like it was in the best interest of students. And I will tell you, it's a very student-centered committee. So,
I'd hate to do the grandfathering that one's just going to be outside our pay grade.
Yeah, so the CTE part is kind of like unintended consequences of the change, right? But I do think that those are probably, you can't hear me. I think those are, can you hear me now? I think those are probably much needed. So I think that's good. So I came here, I'm a little torn because I did come here tonight with the idea that I would kind of, and I know that this is not a board decision. I know this is, there's no governance here. See, I'm learning. So I know this is not a board decision. All these discussions are just so that, because it's a big change for our district, and it's so that we can discuss it and people know what's coming and what's going on, right? But I did come here tonight thinking that I was going to fight for those honors courses, and push on that a little bit to try to keep those. And I do still worry that we are. Let me back up. Seeing the presentation though tonight, and thank you for the charts so that I could see exactly where there were going to be changes. I need that. And then seeing the pros and cons and all of that, I'm rethinking my push to keep the honors classes. But I do have to say that I worry that we're taking away some of that choice that we're so proud of. And I know we still have lots of choice. And I hope that we don't lose some of those students that are afraid to take what has previously been considered a pre-AP course, right? That's my fear right now. So I think there's going to have to, these kids are going to have, the teachers are going to have to, if this change is going to go into effect next year, these teachers are really going to have to pull these kids aside or just really encourage the kids that they know can do it, to challenge themselves. So I do still worry about taking away those honors courses, but I understand the logic and everything behind it. And I there are a lot of positives that I see with making that change. Okay, I said it.
In answer to that, Dr. Trammell, would that not be where y'all are working now on the definition of advanced to kind of ease those concerns possibly? I mean,
That is correct. And
so
then,
that might be the necessary, I hate to say this word, necessary evil, but it might be the necessity that is needed so that you can ease those emotions and concerns.
yeah.
I like that too, that you're going to be looking at that defining what advanced means. Because I know, just like you said, the honors evolved. That's how lots of things happen. They just evolved. And I do think taking some time to step back and looking at some of them, should they be that advanced or not, and what that really means could be meaningful. I also have very mixed feelings about this that I will share. I mean, I think I feel what Ms. Nolan is saying about, trying to, that equity thing when we talk about trying to meet the kids where they are, and I mean, right now, for a long time, we've had those 3 levels of kids for English, 3 levels of kids for our social sciences and social studies. And in many ways, it was working for them, for the students. I will say on the other side of it, the thing that I've always felt was not working is the inequity in the weighting of the GPA. And we've heard that, we hear it year after year, that, we were giving both the honors and AP classes a 5.0 weighting. And when we're sitting there literally saying they are 3 different amounts of rigor, but we're only giving them 2 different levels of GPA. So I do like that it helps address that to me, what was a problem, an inequity in our, but I will say, I don't think it 100% resolves it. When you talk about the word rigor in some of these classes that we look through, and again, I really appreciate getting the comparisons. There is not an equal rigor in every class that has a 5.0. And I don't mean just kind of. I mean, I think there are some huge differences, huge inequities between what we're giving 5.0s for. And I tried to just think back, why are we doing GPAs in the first place, right? I mean, my husband, and I tell our kids, it's not about the grade, it's about learning the stuff, but, I also have a child who will argue me, but I want to get into a college, or, I want to be in the top 6% to get into UT, or the top 10% to get an A&M. It is important to our students. And I think that GPA should be meaningful. And I think it should represent the rigor and that a student has to put in. And I mean, so I'm not going to go class by class and call out which ones I think maybe don't have as much rigor. I mean, I have both kids who have taken some that are very rigorous and some not so. And I also recognize certainly that it would not be an easy thing to discuss and change. But that doesn't mean it's not something, that it's not something we should just brush under the table either. Like the superintendent from Victoria, one of the things he said was the complex problems are our problems when I mean a board. They're the board problems. So, again, mixed feelings, but I also would really want to say the piece on the GPA that I think we have had a lot of inequity with that, and I don't feel like this completely resolves that. So.
Sure.
So what does? I just want your opinion.
I agree.
I mean, if we are, no one wants to solve whatever it may be more than me, and I get what everyone's saying, because I'm I'd speak to it as superintendent or father, either one. I mean, my kid is there right now making that choice, which, many of you are in that boat now or have been. So we've had 2 core content areas go in one direction for however long, as far as the number of tiers, and the other 2 cores with a different set of tiered offerings. So I get that those need to be lined up, and I struggle with the honors thing as well. I told Dr. Trammell about that yesterday. So what is right? Not sure. Do you go 3-tier across the board and then you reset your weighting system relative to having honors? Because I'm hearing it's not necessarily or the opinion it shouldn't be a 5.0. Well, it's more than a 4 than an O level. So where's the conversation taking us, I guess, is what I'm, because this piece, though, with the pre-AP has to be remedied
Right, we have to.
fairly soon. The grade point piece, if you consider the honors, in this particular situation, it's still going to be a 5.0. If you revisit and discuss the honors relative to AP or advanced or whatever, you make it a 4.5. You've got to make that adjustment, as I mentioned, with an incoming freshman class, or else you're going to create inequity and GPAs are going to be off, and we'll all be sitting here and listening to counsel about it 3 or 4 years from now. So, yeah, that is the. There are several different ways to discuss this.
Agreed. And I will say on many of these kind of problems, I think they're not something we necessarily have to do the nitty gritty with us. They're, like we heard at the TASB, they're the great things for committees, great things for task force. But when we said we weren't going to address it, I think that was probably wrong personally, because they are so intertwined. I can give my personal opinion. I think even if we get rid of even if we go to the 2 levels of classes, right? I still believe that there are some of those advanced classes that are probably worthy of a 5.0 and have a whole lot more rigor than some others that are almost just a participation because you've been in something for long enough and then you get a 5.0 for it. I don't know if that represents what a 5.0 should represent. So,
and that is why we are calibrating what is advanced. And then the curriculum would be developed around that. So it would no longer be, the coordinators surveyed teachers to say, well, what constitutes the 5.0 in your class? We got a list that long. And so we need to establish some equity, and we need to, one way, if we aren't going to address it through the GPA, then the way to address it is through the curriculum. And what the teachers are teaching has been around a very long time. We feel like it probably needs to be updated, maybe aligned a little closer to the AP curriculum. And, part of it's staff development. So rigor does not mean more work. Rigor does not mean I'm going to give you 3 hours of homework. That is not rigor.
I agree.
Rigor is how is my brain stimulated? How am I thinking? At what level am I thinking? How engaged am I? When something is rigorous, the brain tends to be engaged if you don't make it so hard that you just give up. So I think all of those things are considerations as we write the curriculum and as we provide professional development to teachers and kind of calibrate as a district what is advanced, and here is what that looks like in College Station ISD classrooms.
again, I appreciate that. I think that kind of step back needs to happen and would certainly help. So it's good to hear. Thank you.
I think tonight's presentation was very good. I think it eased my mind a lot, and just seeing the shift and how the shifts were going to make their changes. On behalf of the board, I'd like to really thank the 34 members. I mean, they're obviously y'all are.
There were some fantastic people on the committee.
Tough questions.
Absolutely. And there was some lively discussion, and we loved every minute of it because no matter which table you went to, it was all about kids. So
That's awesome. Dr. Trammell, can you tell us how many students were on it?
We had the student vice president and the student president from, I think, president from Consol, is that right, Tiffany? The student body, Gwen's Consol's vice president.
Two students?
And then, the charge was to go back and get input. And then we had actually a Google form where the entire committee could go back, solicit input from departments, from other students, Chrissy from counselors and whatever, and put that in there. So then when we came back, we considered all of that feedback as a committee. So we had some good feedback, but it's interesting. Most people were of like mind.
I guess it would have been probably nice to have a little more students. Again, we are trying to see the diversity, but hopefully we're able to gather that information from all the other students through them. So
Yeah.
that's part of their role, so that's good.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Trammell.
Appreciate your comments.
We will move to item D3, consideration and discussion regarding House Bill 3, required board goals and plans. Mr. Martindale.
We've talked about this one a few times. I think it started back in June. We had Dr. Conley come visit with us about House Bill 3 board goals. Dr. Trammell shared this information at workshop last month. Additional information has been in the transmittal as well. So she's going to take us through this one more time with the data that we're recommending. This particular item is on the regular agenda for consideration of approval. So I will mention that to you. So, Dr. Trammell?
And I think it's consent.
It is a consent item.
Okay. All right. So here we go again. And I know y'all have seen this in transmittal a few times. And late at night, I see Miss McAdams in there looking around, reading. All right. We know that House Bill 3 had brought many changes with it, many things to align with the state's goal. The state would like for students to score at least 50 or 60% proficiency on the checkpoints from the state, specifically third grade STAR reading and math. And then they also would like 60% of all students meeting the standard for career, college, or military ready. And that's defined as an industry accepted certificate aligned with a living wage job, enrolling in a post-secondary education, or enrolling in the military. A reminder that it is the board's role to adopt the plans and goals. The plan requirements were that we set measurable goals in early childhood literacy and math and in the area of career, college, and military ready. The plans had to have certain requirements, at least one district administrator or regional service center person to oversee the coordination of each plan. And I did work with the campus principals on this particular project to set specific quantifiable annual goals for 5 years at each campus and to be reviewed at least annually by the board in a public meeting, and to post the annual report on the district and campus websites. So full transparency of where we're at toward meeting our goals. To put everything in context, when the state says meets, the state has 4 different levels of performance on their state assessment. Masters the grade level, meets the grade level, approaches the grade level, and does not meet the grade level. The state considers approaches as students having enough mastery to be promoted to the next grade. So we're looking at meets. When we look at approaches, meets, and masters, and you see College Station ISD holistically our performance on our taper report and the state's performance average, you can see that we're doing very well. We are above the state in every single level. When we look specifically at that meets category, the state was at a 45% and our district was at a 51% meets. So the goal that we set in literacy is based on third grade STAR. And this is a recommendation, and the verbiage is lifted straight from the state's document, that the percent of third grade students that score at least meets grade level or above on STAR reading will increase from, and then we were to put our percentages in. So from 51% to 56%. The 60% meets goal is by 2030. So that's, I think, an important factor to note as well. We all know that we did not take the STAR assessment last year, so we had to go with the year before, and this is where our third graders scored. You will notice that we are very conservative for this year because we did have several months out of school in the spring, and we still have kids moving back and forth between virtual and on-site learning. And across the nation, there are gaps in students because of the pandemic. So we were very conservative. Obviously, we would love to exceed all of these numbers, but we don't know, what the consequences might be for that, or what might occur as a punitive measure from the state if we don't. So we prefer to set the bar and exceed the bar as opposed to, set the bar and maybe not grow 5 percentage points or whatever and have a severe consequence or something from the state. We don't know. So this is our third grade reading goal. We know that in closing the gaps domain of the state accountability system, the performance targets are set at the all students level, as well as for 13 different student groups, of which you'll see here in this little chart. Each group with at least 25 students is reported as having either met with a Y, yes, or not met, and that's reported with a no, the performance target for closing the gaps domain calculations. I think it's important to note that this target changes every single year. So it's not static. It moves with the group of students. So we are looking at one group of students, and then the next group of students that come along are trying to meet or exceed that target of the students that tested the year before. So you're not comparing the same students over time. And that is one of the reasons we have the MAP assessment, because it does allow us to track individual student growth over time so that we are attending to each student's needs. And then within this domain, in the area of academic achievement, the state targets are set for reading and math as indicated for 2020. So, and these are our scores. I did link in the Closing the Gaps report for your convenience there at the bottom, and you'll be able to see the state's current target and then our yes or no marking. In looking at the different groups overall as the district, obviously we have some work to do. And this, we've had work to do for quite a few years. So obviously we had to think, what can we do a little bit differently? Which is why last year we got the MAP assessment, because before that we had our district benchmarks, but we did not have any kind of standardized unit of measure that outside our district from an unbiased, statistically sound test to say our students are growing, or these are the areas we need to specifically target for our students to improve. I will tell you that you can talk to principals. Josh Simak said the other day, his teachers, were disappointed that they didn't have that end of the year assessment because they had done such a good job and were seeing such growth in their kids. They were excited to show what they had done. So that was something we were kind of robbed of because of the pandemic. But hopefully this year we will be able to fully capitalize on that data that we are working with. So while these numbers look a little low in some areas with some groups, we are very aware and we are targeting that. And one of the main things we are using is our MAP assessment to do that. The state has said that you can't just set a goal and, a year from when you set the goal, give the board a report and say, oh, we're doing really well. You have to progress monitor and inform the board about where are you in regards to where the targets are. So they are requiring 3 progress monitoring measures, and these 3 areas are the 3 that they are recommending. Pre-K, we are using the circle exam. For kindergarten through 3rd grade, there are different assessments approved by the state, but we wrote a waiver requesting to use MAP because we do not want to test our kids to death. We want them to learn and have fun learning. And so the state gave us permission to use a test we were already giving that is statistically sound to progress monitor our kids this year. So that is what we're using, and that is what you see in those percentages where we established our 5-year goal. Same thing for math. And I won't go through as thoroughly because I know that you all have seen this and had an opportunity to really look deeply at it. But again, we're exceeding the state in every single category. Here's the meets category. We're 10 full percentage points above the state. This is what our goal looks like for math, starting at 59% and increasing to 61%. And again, this is extremely conservative, and we know that, and we hope to surpass that. But even at that, we will meet and exceed the state's requirement of 60% meets with this goal. Same thing with our different groups of students. And as you see, we have got some work to do. I will have to brag on our campus administrators. They are very aware of this. They have already started meeting with their teachers, analyzing our first round of MAP assessment, grouping our students, and really providing some quality instruction for them. One of the things to note, too, is I want to say bird walk, but with the MAP assessment, we are also tracking our high achievers because we haven't ever before had anything to say, are we growing our high achievers a full year in their academic learning? Because they would make hundreds on everything, and we would assume they're all good. This really helps us deep down track that. Again, the MAP assessment for kindergarten through 3rd grade with the STAR test as recommended by the state for our 3rd grade goal mark, and then our circle exam in math for pre-K. Our campus plans that were a part of the board goals include several things that we are doing. I kind of put a little asterisk by things that are pretty new. We started them last year, and I went ahead and some of them were last year, some of them are this year. I put a star because we didn't have an opportunity to show you what the difference was as a result of our work. But we do have a core group of teachers and some of our campus principals at the elementary level attending the House Bill 3 literacy academies. They are doing walkthroughs on their teachers, bringing that learning forward to their campus. We are still required for every single teacher to get that training at that K3 level, but we are planting seeds of learning and change in our instructional practice by this cohort group going through. Leveled small guided reading groups using fiction and nonfiction text. It was not uncommon for our teachers to walk in and see them working with a student, but reading one-on-one with a student. Well, that sounds really great, but if I've got 22 kids, how often am I going to get around to listening to Mr. Ben read, right? So if we group the kids by the same readability level, then we're able to see them more frequently, like several times a week, if not every day. So that is another thing that we're doing. We have invested in reading across the content areas, which is books with different readability levels for science and social studies and math, so that kids can pursue interest and continue to grow their fluency through areas of interest. And then teachers are using one another's strengths and interests to provide the best interventions and enrichment for our students. Because we do have the gift of MAP that groups our kids, we can leverage the strengths of a team and target enrichment or target, improvement in a certain area for groups of students. And then MAP, which I've mentioned many times, which stands for the Measure of Academic Progress Assessment, is being used to group our students in reading and math. And then this kind of builds on that with small guided math groups. Principals are having district data meetings with Molly and I, and then they are meeting with their teams of teachers. Their team leaders are developing their capacity to also lead in planning to say, okay, here's where this group of students, are performing. What can we do to move them forward in their learning? And then digital software, we have invested quite a bit in our digital software this year, which is very new and very different, to help promote learning and increase student engagement and accelerate some of those weaker areas in students and enrich some of the areas for our kids who are already performing at grade level. Moving to career, college, and military readiness. I've shared this slide before, so I'm not going to read it to you, but essentially the state has established criteria for college, career, and military ready, certifications in CTE for job ready areas for a career, making a 3 on an AP exam, all of the things that we've talked about, completing a dual credit course. Again, we are ahead of the state with career, college, and military ready. And when we look at the goals, we used our data from year before last to calculate our goals. We're already performing. A lot of our kids are college ready, and career ready, and military ready, but you'll see how many kids are in the military in a minute. Here are our groups of students where we need to be very mindful as we advise them as counselors on career paths or being college ready. So we're fully aware, and the counselors are aware of where we stand in this area. Again, we have to progress monitor. And so one of the progress monitoring measures is for college ready, and that would be things like, the ACT, a dual credit class, those kinds of things. And then career ready, which would be CTE certifications, level 1 or level 2 certifications for being job ready when they graduate or having an associate's degree. And then military ready. And as you see, military ready is the lowest because we don't have many of our students pursue a career in the military. Most of our students go to college. So, but military is a career, and it's a great one. And so our percentages of increasing in that area are extremely conservative because we want, our kids to pursue the areas they're interested in. So Just a reminder of the website posting requirements. We are going to post the annual report on all the campus websites as well as the district website. And each campus's action plans would be posted on there as well. Another thing I didn't mention is you'll notice some of these strategies that I shared previously in campus improvement plans. And then we have 5 campuses, and Ms. Perry's going to talk to you about that in a minute, on TIP plans, and those are also targeted in those plans. So we have a pretty tight alignment in what we are doing to improve for all groups of students. One of the things that we need to do is report progress to you. And instead of giving a board report every month on just progress monitoring, we would like to give you updates in the transmittal. The state recommends not doing like all 13 campuses at once, the 3 high schools and the 10 elementaries. So we broke it apart for month by month so that it's not data overload for you. And we will share the information as the calendar indicates. The board goals aren't approved yet, so we haven't started, and it's October. But if you approve them tonight, of course, we will need to get going on this. And you may have data overload 1 month to backtrack a little bit. The annual report would be given in December, and that's because our TABR report is not final until December. So the state does not finalize all of that until December, and we wanted hard data to give you. So that is why we said the annual review would be in December, which sounds a little bit different. I will have to tell you, we don't have anything to report this year because we didn't have a STAR exam this spring. Then looking at the rest of the year, you'll see we'll continue our data analysis training and really look at what are we really doing to grow in the skill areas that students need to grow in, and then just dividing up the campuses. MOY stands for middle of the year assessment, and EOY stands for end of the year assessment. And then we would report in July to you the final progress on our progress monitoring. So with that, any questions about the board goals and plans? I know y'all have seen them at this point many times, but put that on there.
I hate that we're running out of, time here a little bit, because honestly, I think we should be talking more about this. There was a thing that came out from TASB about 3 weeks ago, and the headline got my attention. It said, what should the board be focusing on right now? What is our role during this time in the pandemic? And what they said is we should be focusing on what we should always be focusing on, which is student achievement.
Absolutely.
And that's what we should be talking about. And by the way, I'm not looking at that every night. I think
No,
I have it open for
I have seen your little symbol there.
I have been looking at it, and I keep thinking I can't stop thinking about those, particularly the 17% number. It's just very painful, and it is. I think, that's just one, and
Sure.
But I think it represents that our African American student group, where I think struggled the most, and we have some other student groups as well. And I think this is not like some pet peeve issue of mine, but when you look at the data and you see how well our students do achieve overall compared to the state, and when they achieve in so many ways, this is one of the places where I really feel we're failing. And I appreciate us putting it out there and talking about it so much. And I do appreciate you sharing some of the things that the district's going to be working on. Some of them new. I'm excited about MAP.
Yeah.
I still feel like that none of that is really outside of the box. And that just maybe when we were talking about, again, Fort Bend and Victoria and those TASB presentations, this might be a perfect place for a task force that I really feel like it's outside of even just a classroom, and maybe even outside of our district. And I'll just say one more thing. We were all at Schlechte in January and one of the other things they talked about is our our job is to, hold our district accountable and make sure they're meeting the goals that we think are important. But we can't just say, work harder, work faster to get there. Right? Our job is to facilitate and put the systems in place to help the district get there. And, I think of it as the analogy as our students are trying to, swim across a canal to get somewhere. And, our teachers are helping them every day. They're working hard. They're swimming every day. We can't just tell them to swim faster, kick harder. I mean, our job as the board is to build the boat or build a bridge to help them do that. So I just feel like I would still keep challenging the board to talk about this more and talk about can we do something different than we've done before? Because it's
the good thing about this is the progress monitoring. And so it's not like this conversation is going to go away. These are 5-year goals. We may end up changing some of them based on our student performance. Like I said, it would be our hope that we exceed what is on a piece of paper with our kids, and especially in some of those groups that are lower, but with all of our kids. And so it's not, it's an ongoing partnership with the board. So it's not a one and done kind of thing. And that's why you get progress monitoring. So
when will we see the MAP scores from the fall?
We can try to get them in next month. We had limited technology, so we had to extend our windows just a smidge. So,
and I know they're kind of almost be like a new baseline, right? Because of all the
and I will say we have a concern with our virtual students who tested virtually, and I can put some more information about that in the transmittal. So,
thanks to everybody who's working to make these numbers better. I still feel like we should be thinking outside the box on this as a board and a district.
So looking at those numbers, I also thought of Schlechte, and you pretty much already talked about it, about how I remember one of the exercises that we did, we already talked about this once, was putting issues into that little engine, right, and seeing where it's falling apart. And the example they gave was extracurricular activities, and getting their kids into extracurriculars, and the solution they found was altering their bell schedule, which was a little outside the box, right? So that's what I thought of whenever I was looking at these numbers too, and saying, geez, we've had these numbers for years. We've got to change this. So yes, I'm with you, Ms. McAdams.
And I could throw out my ideas. I'm not the smartest person in this area to solve it, right? We could talk about one-to-one devices. We could talk about more summer school. We could talk about funding more kids in Kids Club. We could, I think, and just more community and family involvement in general. I think there's so many things that we could do that are kind of outside of the classroom to help.
Right. There's something that you said it a couple times, Dr. Trammell, that I hate hearing these words tied to this, is you said punitive and consequences. And I hate that we have to think about that whenever we're figuring out what our goals need to be. I hate that that's tied to that. And I know that's the state, but I just wanted to say that. Yeah.
I'm going to have to move us to item.
thank you.
I hate to cut it short, but due to time restrictions, I'm going to have to move us to item D4. Consideration discussion regarding the targeted improvement plan for campuses as required by the TEA. Mr. Martindale.
Ms. Perry.
All right, good evening. I know our time is brief prior to the public hearing where you'll hear more about this, and so I will endeavor to provide an overview, and then we'll talk more about it at 6:45. So in front of you, you all have a packet of information that was also received last Friday regarding the more specific details of our campus targeted improvement plans, and so feel free to reference that information as we go along in this overview. First of all, as a reminder, state statute does require the development of targeted improvement plans, or TIPs, for campuses that have a D overall or any of the 3 domains. And so as a part of that process, we have to go through a framework for effective schools, hold public meetings at each of those campuses, just have these conversations as a board, and ultimately adopt those at the board level. As Dr. Trammell mentioned, we did not have any STAR assessments in spring 2019, and as a result, all of our campuses and districts across the entire state were labeled not rated, declared state of disaster. However, we do have to continue any of those sanctions and interventions that we began in 2019, and so the information you're seeing this evening is actually based on the data from STAR 2019. So as a quick reminder, also the Effective Schools Framework is really looking at the heart of what supports effective instruction, looking at that strong leadership and planning surrounding the high quality curriculum, positive culture, and effective, well-supported teachers. We really are a strong proponent of this framework because it's research-based. It provides a common language among the campus staff members as well as across campus. It supports continuous improvement, and it brings better alignment to us as well. So in that process, like any improvement process, we start with identifying the needs, developing a plan, and then, of course, implementing and monitoring that along the way to ensure any adjustments are made. And so this was a great process for us this year as a second round. We were a little more familiar with it, able to jump in and see where we landed, although our year was cut short in the traditional sense, and determine our next steps. So we do have 5 levers, and we are looking at identifying needs and determining which of those 5 levers are going to give us the greatest leverage to influence change at the campus. And so each campus looks at strong school leadership and planning, effective, well-supported teachers, positive school culture, high-quality curriculum, and effective instruction, and determines which of those levers are the most high priority for their campus based on their current needs. These were very similar to last year. We had just a couple of changes. You'll probably notice right away that all of the 5 campuses involved in these processes chose both 5.1 objective-driven daily lesson plans with formative assessments as well as data-driven instruction. I think that's really indicative of where we are as a district, that we've done a lot of great work in developing and improving our curriculum over the last few years. And at this point, those are the components that many of our campuses are working on. Creekview did have an adjustment. They last year worked on 3.1, made a lot of great progress, and shifted their focus to 1.1 with some changes in leadership. And then Southwood Valley is continuing 1.1 as they had some changes within their leadership team, and this is the second year their principal has been there. So just looking briefly at each of the 5 campuses, you'll see listed here the specific annual outcomes. And again, in your packet, you'll find more information about the barriers that have been identified and some of the details of the components that they're looking at. One of the things that I think that is worth note is that although all campuses have 5.1 and 5.3 and are working on similar things, those goals are very unique to each campus. They were really driven by the campus teams and looked at the unique needs that they have within those specific areas. And so College Hills is going to be really working on their lesson plans, making sure those formative assessments are clearly embedded and are providing differentiation for students. And for 5.3, again, focusing on differentiation to make sure that that data is informing instruction for all students. In South Knoll, we're looking at the implementation of a common lesson planning template so that it is really more aligned with our online learning format as a district. In terms of 5.3 or data-driven instruction, they're going to really dig in and take it to the next level in understanding the use of map assessment to inform the instructional needs of their students. Creekview, as I mentioned, they're adding 1.1 this year and really going to focus on clear and well-defined roles to improve collaboration and a clear commitment to their mission and vision that they developed last year or redeveloped. In 5.3, they are working through the curriculum documents and the new performance-based assessments that have been incorporated to help ensure aligned rigorous instruction, and again, looking at their data to help really inform what their students need. Southwood Valley, they worked on really defining those roles last year, and so they're moving towards empowerment to make sure their teams are sharing the vision, and the leadership is not just at the principal and assistant principal level, but it's very much shared. In 5.1, they are also really focusing on extended planning as a strategy to improve really developing solid plans for their teams. And in 5.3, data-informed instruction will be utilized, so that's their ultimate goal. And last, but certainly not least, at Spring Creek, they are really focusing on the formative assessment component of their lesson planning and showing that evidence of differentiation for different student needs. And in 5.3, they'll be planning at least weekly using a common planning template to differentiate instruction. So again, you'll see lots of common themes throughout, which is actually fantastic because as a district, that allows us to really provide great support because everyone really is working on common areas. And we are looking forward to seeing the progress that our campuses make using these strategies this year. And with that, I would be happy to take any questions or hear any comments that you may have. Our principals, I will note, are all here this evening involved in this process. And so should you have specific questions for them, they'll be available as well.
Just one quick question. These plans are in place until when?
So these plans are an annual document. And so this time last year, I believe it was actually in November, the board adopted the 2019 plans. And so these are for 2021, and they include quarterly progress monitoring. And so in the event that a campus would need to continue a plan next year based on their performance on 2020 STAR, we would go through this process of adoption again next fall.
So these campuses staying on because we did not have a STAR in.
Correct. All campuses that had a plan in 2019 are required to continue that plan because there was no STAR assessment in 2019. So in other words, all of the students that obtained the scores resulting in these interventions have moved to other campuses because it's now been several years.
Thank you.
Known as COVID asterisks.
Yeah, exactly. Making sure.
Any further questions? I think we did very good. You squeezed us down there so we can, in 2 minutes, we can continue on. Thank you. We'll take a 2-minute break.